Greetings, I am Lies.
And I am No Sound.
Oh,
Scandal.
no. And let's play a game
together.
Let's listen to a game together.
Woo.
All right. So we do try and remember the sound. In our early days and some of our older videos, and including the Arcana release that is coming out, we have had not so much sound. But the intention is to include the game experience as well. Music, of course, copyrighted to the game owners. And we have not actually critiqued and reviewed the music very much, other than, oh my god, this is funny.
Right.
Or, wow, what a coincidence. Or this goes so hard suddenly. Well, I'm only in the way that it relates to the game, usually.
Right?
I was just say, there's been a few times that
There's also a thing of, in that sense, like, I have to admit, like, with the music itself, it seems to be more that basic elevator music sort of experience.
A lot of
without,
it's very,
like, being...
very bland.
Yeah, but it's very bland. It's not necessarily a bad thing. So I think one of those associations with, elevator music is always really super bland. I'm like, actually, that's kind of the point, so that it doesn't really either, like, stick with you, or basically doesn't invade in your mental space or in your experience.
It's supposed to sort of basically be a positive sort of like mental addition,
right,
without taking away energy from you.
Right.
And honestly, I have enjoyed some elevator music renditions.
Oh god, yeah.
Like a lot of some things. Like back in the day when it was Disney songs all the way, like the elevator music Disney songs just went a little less hard, if you will,
right,
than the ones that were like, we have two divas just belting it out intensely into your eardrums,
right,
and it was just the elevator music of, you know, like a whole new
it
world.
was just kind of
really
like
nice.
Soft dooting in the background.
It was kind of nice. Anyway, so welcome back. Here we go.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
So we're gonna now finally see these guys off, because apparently
they're gonna go hiking.
They're gonna go hiking, and we're gonna steal the dog, because apparently this has become our position.
All right.
Oh, we're gonna also keep Rachel, definitely. I thought that Rachel was just gonna leave, like, with them and then go her own way.
I was kind of thinking that too. Like, is she staying here?
Right.
Again, there was this weird bit of writing in the last bit where it feels like, and I've noticed this with a lot of games, it seems like the farther they get in with a sort of an episodic model, or if they did do basically a, basically they've expanded their story after their initial,
right,
or they released before, you know, the story was finished and they kept going kind of thing.
Right.
It seems like as the stories get further along, that they get less cohesive, or that they're more likely to have like plot holes, plot errors, that kind of thing. I'm not sure what that is, but it is something I have run into over and over again. In the same way that I will read books and go, this feels like it's written by a new writer, I can go, this feels more late game because there's more errors.
Right.
Or because it's less, it draws you in less.
There's also the experience too that I realize, especially over the years, you can really also see it, of going like, this is the part that you most heavily focused on, and then the rest of it you sort of either let fall off, and because your editor was so invested, or basically even the team, where they were like, if you start releasing an episodic format because you've got so many other things going on, and if you really don't have your writer really focusing in on what's going on, or they can clearly lay out everything that's going on, this is where a format, as far as I can tell, is really helpful, because you can clearly go, okay, they went from point A to point B to point A to point B, this thing with that thing, and that way then you can keep track of stuff with shorthand, so you're not having to remember every single detail, but it's like it really can overwhelm your writer or your writers.
Many writers. I was going to say, it can also be really helpful if you have multiple people writing these characters, these experiences,
yes,
for you to have a shorthand of who these people's personalities are,
yes,
so you know what kind of choices they would make,
right,
and also what the big plot is like heading for, or the focus is,
right,
so that you have those two guides to work with.
Right.
Anyway, all right.
Okay, we're gonna head on out. Bye!
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 All right. Bye! Oh.
I do not know why you do that every single time, Karen. Ha! Well, wouldn't you like to do, Dad?
Well, wouldn't you? It's probably, why are you so old?
Honestly, though, considering what I learned about RuPaul's Drag Race, so I will clarify. I've never actually seen RuPaul's Drag Race. I apologize. I've only seen like clips from it every once in a while. Behind the scenes stuff. I have seen and I have heard some music videos and listened to a fair amount of music on Pandora. Of the queens. But like of various queens, kind of over the generations, because that also would include, you know, like Divine and various other drag queens.
Yep.
So specifically though with like RuPaul's Drag Race, I've never actually really gotten involved with, but I heard that actually it was really popular.
For a while.
Like, especially, so in sections of the United States though that I unexpectedly thought, like for me socially would go, that's a little unexpected. Okay. Because people would be like, you know, it's something that is basically inappropriate for other parts of the United States more clearly. So it was interesting to kind of learn that it became pretty popular in some areas because of that, but I'm also like, that probably means though that due to the high, what I will call repression, like basically strong control of what looks like a good thing, very strong moralistic of like there's good and there's bad and very dichotomous.
Okay.
You actually tend to, in my experience, you have a lot more people who go, I'm gonna go try this darker, more edgy thing more frequently or more intensely. Because actually, I love that too. So like, this might be a little bit TMI for some people, but there are some actually like sex shops where they talk about where it's like where we get most of our orders from tend to be the more conservative states or conservative parts of the country in relation to the United States. So I always think that's really interesting where people go, no, this thing, we have this image, you're not allowed to do it. And it's like, because of basically, so remember you guys where I talked about that pendulum effect?
Oh, where we were talking about basically rebellion versus repression.
Right.
Where when people are essentially strapped down a certain way or limited a certain way, if they're never able to express or explore that side of things, they often will go really heavy into it when they do.
Right, and it will be that very quiet thing. It actually was even a joke. So when I lived in Idaho, and I've heard actually stories, like, so somebody who was like, I was a part of like the alcohol liquor business.
Oh, okay.
Right, so they were like, so this is a thing that I did, but they were like, I heard about, like, I knew people who worked in Utah, and also I worked in Idaho, but it was like, so we all knew we would watch, so there were basically high-ranking, parts of the Mormon church that would come in and get alcohol. They get the tiny little shot glasses, and they would buy a mint. You know, they would buy mints, and they would buy these little tiny little bottles of shots of alcohol that would be like 1 to 2 shots, and they would have that before they would go to church.
And you're just like, there it is.
These people are so unhappy. This is where I'm like, for me, what I'm seeing is basically people who don't know how to express themselves or interact with basically their own stressors, and in some ways it's aggravated deeply. I feel like we should stop being so cruel to each other. Like,
repression doesn't seem to help people.
It really doesn't.
It's that you need an internal motivation, not an external motivation.
Right.
If you're going to really commit to something.
Right. Yeah.
Your great aunt had a Zen garden, huh? Yeah, I had almost forgotten about it in my desperate bid for a me day. Me day.
Honestly, though, it sounds like, for as far as I can tell, as for someone who's just reading this, seems like Lily doesn't know about nearly everything in this garden until it basically comes along and smacks her in the face.
And that's, again, it feels very episodic in that way of going like a serial, like you're releasing it weekly kind of thing.
Right.
Because it feels like she only remembers it and only thinks about it in reference to it has now shown up to the player. And I get that there's some level of mystique. If we want to work this into, here's your hidden zone, so we're not going to talk about it. On the other hand, me as a player, hearing her refer to other things in her Aunt Mary's life, and then those being tied to zones or in her own childhood would be fun. I would like that. And going, I didn't even realize that was a reference to something that could be a zone because of the way you put it in, and then I saw it and I went, oh, that's so cool.
Right.
Like, tie-ins are super fun. Like, setup and payoff is really good.
Yes, absolutely.
Something new, some wild new thing to discover here. I'm like, you really haven't been around here very much, so yes? I guess.
I'm like, wild Zen gardens are actually incredibly meticulously cared for.
Well,
what is that
wild new thing, meaning something unexpected,
Oh,
something not wild like crazy, wild like unexpected. Oh, your hair's so wild.
Right.
It doesn't mean you didn't spend 6 hours carefully doing it with a hairdresser's help, support, trimming, and dyeing. It just means it's wild as the result.
It was unexpected. Yeah. All right, that's fair.
Right. You're telling me. Luke told me about your inheritance situation. That must be really stressful.
But the thing is what does he know?
I'm
still annoyed about that, going, what does he know? Luke barely, like,
I'm trying to remember.
Well, I mean, we told him, because we did explain
We told him taxes more than we can afford, basically.
Right, I remember that, like, way more than we can afford.
But I guess telling him about the situation is going, yeah, Lily's in a situation where she might not be able to keep the house.
Right.
Like, that could be telling you about it. And you could go, oh, why not? And you're like, oh, well, something to do with taxes, and she might not have enough money based on her inheritance.
Right.
Done. Like, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's getting to me today. Earlier, I yelled at a tree. That's kind of cute.
Aw.
You're just like, this is my life. I live here now.
I'm a tree yeller.
I'm
disappointing
just
to
put
myself.
a badge on yourself. Hello, I'm Lily. I yell at trees.
Hi, Lily. Welcome to the Yelling at Trees Club.
Welcome to the Gardening Angst Club. We support you.
Yes.
Come and dig in with us. Okay. Well, I can give you a hand for a while if you like. I owe you one, and I've got nowhere to be today. She just offered to spend a day. That seems like a friendship offer to me. Not like, hey, I'm actually interested in helping you. Not like she isn't interested, but that feels like, hey, we're trying to be friends. Do you want to hang out? You need to do this? Let's hang out. So that's one of the things that I've talked about making friends before.
Right.
Is if there's somebody you want to friend, and you can't find time to get around them, or they just don't, they seem a little bit on the edge of what you're normally able to access as a friend.
Right.
But you're going super drawn to them as a friend, interested, right? Then one of the primary ways to get into their life, and this can work for a love interest as well, I would say, but again, you have to be aware of how you're approaching it without like this aggressive agenda, or just being really honest about your agenda kind of thing. One of those things, I would say, is to offer to help them with something they need to do.
Right.
Like, if you're not sure how to approach somebody, offer to help them with something they need to do. Now, be sure you're going to be competent and able to do that thing to some degree.
Right.
Where
going
I'm
going to go do this thing, and then I broke something
where
because
you're not
I
going
actually
to
don't know
cause
what I'm
them,
doing.
you're not going to cause them more trouble, and you're not going to make it harder for them. But if it's something like, oh, you need to garden, can I help with that? Or going, I know a little about whatever your skill set is, such as pulling weeds, or, I've done bonsai before, or, I've kept fish tanks with live plants, whatever it is, that might be applicable. Or obviously someone needs to move, you can offer to carry boxes, etc., etc. But yeah, like helping someone with something they need to do, such as, oh, I need to go up to whatever place it is and get this task done, be like, I can help you with that.
Right.
It's a really good way to get to know the person in essentially a working environment where it's not, your regular job.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, it's a great medium. All right, so I like that line. That's great. That'd be so nice.
So nice.
So nice.
That's so nice.
So nice. Oh, clean gravel.
Or rebuild the walkway.
Gravel sounds like it would be under walkway, so maybe rebuild
Gravel
walkway
first?
afterwards. Like, I'm really I want a reasonable order of operations in here so bad.
Except we keep getting booted off in the other direction, going like, how are we? God, we are just a warlock. That's the other thing I have.
It really is. Like going, we can build an entire structure on top of this and then fix the ground under it afterwards.
Yep,
Like,
it'll be great. It'll be fine.
We are freaking magical. And honestly, putting a warlock and minor god, and magical subtext to this, but soft magic, like urban magic kind of thing, or magical realism would be so much fun. Like, you don't have to have fairies in the garden. You literally just have your squirrel that's a minor deity. You don't have to have huge magic and sparkles and living gnomes show up, though that might be fun if you had some convention there somewhere.
Right.
I was gonna say, but you can literally just be like, I will make the grass grow because I'm not buying sod.
Right.
Well, the gravel beds certainly need work. And then other people going like, oh, you're gardening, basically you do gardening magic.
Right.
And you're like, I'm learning. It's
so
exhausting.
Much.
And they're going, well, I can contribute manual labor to support it. Like, you just literally have it be this integrated thing.
It would be really neat. I feel like in some ways it's kind of underutilized, at least the more, I want to call it more like simplistic, like urban magic. People tend to really go, I think, pretty ham in on the, I need immediately to have a whole society of monsters and
it all needs to look different. And like the thing is they could be wearing these clothes, everything else could be the same. You could change the text of this game. Like if you took screenshots and changed the text of this game with the pictures one after the other, you could make it all work the way it is now.
Right.
Like it would.
Yes.
I think it's so you don't have to have like I just feel like more modern magic isn't really used very well. And I guess I could turn it to this thing that my friend Scandal here has mentioned a few times, that when people move from one culture to another, whatever way that is, that they will pick up useful things in the new culture or necessary things in the new culture, whether it's language, job structure, laws, that kind of thing, but also going, you have tools in your culture that I've never encountered before. These are great. But it doesn't mean you drop your old culture at all.
Right.
So you could have people who are like, really in the sense of magic is completely integrated with the other culture we've developed kind of thing. And not in a sense of everything looks magical, but going, yeah, we have people who are architect magicians.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be something like they summon a building out of the ground wearing a robe. They can literally be a person in a business suit who shows up and instructs the metal where to stand.
Right.
Or restructures, like you're like, how deep is the bedrock? And they're like, how deep do you want it to be?
Right.
That kind of thing.
Now, I will say there is also a deeper layer to that. That is also a thing that I will say, as in my experience, tends to afflict real life people. So it's kind of going from that idea where real life people go, they don't just drop their culture. There is, though, I will say a lot of unfortunate, and I find it unfortunate because there is a lot of basically social pressure or even governmental incentive for you to drop your old
culture. There is some
there is a lot of
erasure and things like that.
It happened, and it basically is encouraging a level of genocide, like cultural genocide.
Just
that is
killing-
very unfortunate. Of
Yeah.
going like, but yours isn't useful, or the thing of like, where have you ever been like, you guys ever been to like a work or a job, or even just seen your parents, where you go, they're like, God, there's this thing that I do, and I have to remember that I have to wear these clothes or do this thing, and it's like you kind of watch them sort of get rid of things that were important to them because it doesn't fit with the work culture that they have to get involved in.
If you wear your hair like that, it calls you out as being a part of another culture that's less desirable.
Right.
So don't do that. I'll say, and cultural genocide, if you're not familiar with the term, doesn't involve killing people. It
Right.
involves killing traditions and customs.
Right, which
that
are
kind of thing. So
tied to basically like oppression or expression,
I say
you
they're
know,
really,
of self.
I say they are tied. It is a deliberate action though to remove those things.
Yes.
I say, and what I was going to do is basically go. You could have them be integrated in such a way that you really just have, you know, some people who do magic and some people who don't. And it's not really this big, like, specific segregated thing like Harry Potter at all. It's really
God.
just like some people fold origami, some people don't. Some people go into architecture, some people don't. Some people go into the medical field, some people don't. Now, there's nothing keeping anyone out of the medical field
No,
except
honestly,
finances. Generally,
I keep giggling because, okay, so side thing for me at least that I
Okay.
thought was really funny is just like, it occurs to me really of going like, in that particular culture of like just Harry Potter itself, why wouldn't you have basically wizard families that had 90 million children?
right? Because they're
Draco
trying
would
to
be-
produce more children.
Right, because
more
you'd be like,
wizards.
if you can definitively prove that if you are magical, your chances of having a magical child, if you guys get together, go up
extremely
like
high.
like astronomically.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you guys have 90 million magic kids going like, we're going to prove, because also magicians are very uncommon,
that we're
and
better.
also
and
if
we're going
you-
to become more common.
and we're gonna make ourselves more common, and also going, we are the pure bloods, because there's that big whole thing with the Slytherins. Like the Slytherins, for example, should have like 90 million children. Like,
Just like
bull crap.
I was gonna say, but for me, I was just like, if you had magic in the
Yes.
world, like again, it wouldn't have to be one special or segregated. It could be sort of saying like someone going, "I'm a doctor." Oh my God, I could have never gone to medical school. Someone goes, "I'm a gardening, mage," and they go, "Oh my gosh, that's so much work. I could never study that hard."
Right?
Ugh.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're so privileged, you're so special. It's just a skill.
Right?
And some people are going, "I am not going to learn that skill. That's a pain in the ass."
Right? You're
You
like,
know,
ah!
like that's it.
Yep.
All right. You mean sand?
Yeah. Sand.
Sand.
Such sand.
Oh, no. Common misconception. They're usually a kind of fine gravel, so the design won't blow away in the wind.
Okay,
That's so good.
this sounds, okay, so I will say, based off of reading, this sounds very informed, which I appreciate very much.
Yes.
Like, there's been a lot of things where I'm like, I don't, where...
They did some research for Rachel, and I like that.
Right?
Or they had basically someone who knew. They're going, someone going, I am a Japanese American, and I know my heritage, or whatever
Right?
it is, you know?
Or I am just Japanese, and this is where I immigrated to, this is what I do.
Or I just live in Japan, and I help you with your game. I correspond as an expert.
Right? That'd be
Whatever
great.
it is.
They actually...
But anyway, they did some
this
sort of research. This is very good.
sounds more informed. Now, granted, I don't actually know if this is true, but that's okay. To me, like, the fact is that...
Sounds reasonable,
it does
for
sound-
sure. I say, and I was looking at the desert one and going, that's going to blow everywhere. And I did talk about the edges not being high enough. That sand is going to drift all over your memorial garden.
Uh-huh.
All right, here we go. That's very cute, though.
That is really sweet. It also, like, to me, it adds a lot of character. Like, again, the thing where I'm, like, just making sometimes willingly designs, while they can be fun, sometimes they really just feel sort of empty. There's no lasting impression. Like, one of the things that I always wish for, so, like, this is one of, like, a personal thing, just, like, in regards to, like, we're consuming basically media that doesn't speak English.
Okay.
Right? So, like, if it's ever going to get translated, I'm saying, yeah, sure, I could learn how to speak the language. But while I'm trying to figure out how to do that, because it is actually a process and it can actually take time.
Right.
Because also, I will say, in the United States, you're not really encouraged to learn a language, which is not
You really aren't.
really, again, that sort of like thing where I feel like it's kind of a cultural genocide kind of thing of being like, we're never really encouraged to learn anything about anybody else's culture, and then we go, why don't you guys have our opinions? I don't understand.
We are all small from My Mystic Dragons going, you need to learn our culture.
Yeah, what's wrong with
What's
you?
why? Well, let me help you understand my culture.
Right? But the thing is like, what I always wished for is, like, if I was ever going to be reading, like, subtitles, or basically in just some way where somebody was translating something.
Where
it
they
would
give
be
you context.
Super neat. Well, yeah, where they would give you context. Like, I will say this again. I loved it when I was growing up, when people did so much more fan dubbing.
And
in regards to like anime, because people really did spend time breaking down. They even did it in terms of like doujinshi, or even before a bunch of series came over to the United States. You could find basically fan translations or fan scantilations of manga where people would explain in the sidebars of going, okay, this word could mean this
here's
thing, this
why
thing,
I
or
made
this thing.
these choices.
These are
Here's
this,
what I thought the author
and
was
they could
talking
also
about.
then be all the way at the very end of it, and it was so good. Like, it felt like it was so sort of like inclusive and trying to bring you in on basically what was going on culturally, and it felt very, again, it felt very inclusive of like trying to make you aware that this language is so complex and there's so much going on.
I think I'd like to relate that to something that happened in school.
Sure.
So for me, when I was in like regular school, and then even when I was in homeschool,
Right.
there's this experience of everybody wanting kids to read nonfiction. They want you to
Oh,
read
God, yeah.
history books, they want you to read naturalist books, they want you to read geography books, that kind of thing.
Right.
They want you to read nonfiction, read biographies, learn about your real world, right? When I was
because
a
there
kid,
are no biases there.
well, the thing is that's a whole nother conversation.
Oh, God.
But
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I could not read nonfiction very well at all. Not only did I have trouble reading, but that's unrelated, is that I had no connection to it. Most of it, like, I could not picture anything in my head. I couldn't connect it to anything culturally. I couldn't put it in the web of my brain or in the schema of my knowledge at all. So I'm literally just shoving words into my brain, trying to memorize them in order about whatever this person is talking about. And I can't put it anywhere because I don't have the cultural context. And so for me, as an adult, reading nonfiction is now super interesting because I've had more time, especially if it's related to something I'm familiar with.
Right.
Is because then I go, this is more about what I already know about and have experienced. So if you gave kids nonfiction that were relevant to what they were already learning and understanding right now, such as school politics, or some people have, depression for kids. Like, not that that's a big, like that thing you really want to like go, yes, read a book on depression kind of thing. But there's a lot of anxiety in, kids in school and stuff. And you could, have books that are about grade school experiences, about grade school psychology, written towards their age demographic kind of thing. If you want them to learn nonfiction, talk about the stuff they're using. Maybe the history of bicycles written towards their age and what age most kids around the world learn bicycles, if kids around the world do have bicycles, etc., etc.
Right.
The fact that bicycles are generally in places that you have structured streets.
You know what that actually reminds me of? I remember when I was actually going through school, one of the couple of, two classes that tend to get complained about the most was like math. Sometimes science would get complained about in history.
Okay.
Like, those three would basically bounce around as being the most boring or basically unfriendly classes.
See, I never heard about science. I got geography, history, and math.
Like,
it's the real world,
yeah,
and then the numbers.
I mean, I got math. Oh yeah, so I was like, I did forget about geography. Damn, because I didn't really get geography. I also had so little in terms of geography. I will completely own up to that. But
anyway, context is what connects people.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so, let's get it cleaned up before we get all artistic.
Yay!
All right, here we go.
Artsy fartsy.
Lots of gravel later.
Honestly, again, I really appreciate that sort of thing of being like, hey,
we
this
did
is
both
culturally
sides.
what's going on.
Poof.
Yes, we did do both sides. Good job.
Oh, look at that.
Hey.
Gravelous. That's cute. Gravelous?
Gravelous.
Gravelous, like marvelous, gravelous.
Yep, gravelous,
yeah. Gravelous. Sometimes I have a hard times with these, like based on my dyslexia and how I do predictive reading. I'm like, gravel, yeah.
Yeah,
Like, it's grabula. I don't know.
Mount Dankula.
I don't actually know how you're supposed to set up a Zen garden. How convenient that you're here on this specific day, right now. I've pulled my how convenient card. Boy, here we go.
It's also, though, kind of thoughtful.
No,
actually.
it's very cute. I love it. Ha! Would you believe that I, an Asian American designer, might know a thing or two about it? That's super cute. I feel like I was going to say that her character is really well, pulled together so far.
Right.
Like, as far as her focusing on what it is she knows and having, consistent speech patterns and things, she seems really well put together. Very well designed.
Yes.
All right. Ha! Well, I didn't want to assume. I know. It's a little on the nose. That's
it's
very
true.
charming. Well, the idea is you take a natural landscape and distill it down to into simple forms. So the gravel represents water. Usually rocks represent mountains. It's a miniature landscape.
This is so cool.
How about the gravel patterns? What do you do with those? Well, you use a rake to do it, but you're not supposed to do any specific thing. I always thought of them as wind patterns. As representing sort of the wind. It's intended to be a creative exercise and to help you concentrate. It's Zen. Want to give it a go? That's
all right,
super
we'll give it a
cute.
go in the next one. But thank you very much, guys, then, for joining us. If you like what we do, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe.
Absolutely.
And also feel free to please go check out our Ko-Fi and our Patreon. We would really appreciate it. If, other than that, though, you like us, please also feel free to actually share our videos. Maybe to, like, start a conversation or to sort of, like, just kind of engage in something. I don't know. Like, again, feel no pressure at all, but it's kind of neat sometimes to get new people. But other than that, like, it's just kind of fun to hear about things that you guys share. Like,
Yeah.
it's been fun, for sure. And other than that, though, I have been Scandal.
And I have been Lies. And it was
It was
great playing with you. Bye!